You're not invisible by accident. People pull away for a reason. And most of the time, that reason is you. Not because you're broken, but because you've been carrying the wrong energy, wearing the wrong mask, following habits that push people away without you even realizing it. This isn't about being louder, flashier, or trying to impress. It's about becoming real. In the next few minutes, you'll uncover the subtle patterns that quietly sabotage your relationships and the Stoic principles that can transform the way people see you and the way you see yourself. Stop wondering why you're alone. Start becoming the man people naturally want around. Now, before getting into this masterpiece training, subscribe to Darkwood Audiobooks and take control of the life and relationships you deserve. There's a specific kind of pain that comes with being avoided. It's not loud. It doesn't announce itself. It sits in the silence after you speak and no one responds. It lives in the moment someone's eyes glaze over mid-conversation. It settles in when invitations stop coming, when your texts go cold, when you realize you're the one always reaching out and no one's reaching back. You tell yourself it doesn't matter, that you don't need anyone, that solitude is strength. And maybe that's partly true, but deep down, you know the difference between choosing to be alone and being left alone. One is power, the other is neglect. And if you're honest, which most men refuse to be, you felt it. That slow drift, the way people seem fine when you're around, but never ask where you've been when you're gone. The way conversations happen around you, not with you. The way your presence is tolerated, not wanted. It's not always dramatic. No one sits you down and tells you you're too much or not enough. Instead, they just fade. They stop calling, stop asking, stop caring, and you're left trying to figure out what the hell happened. Here's what happened. Something about you repels people. And until you face that, nothing changes. Not your job, not your body, not your bank account. Those things might open doors, but they won't keep people in the room. What keeps people close, or drives them away, is energy, presence, the way you make others feel when you're near them. And if people are avoiding you, it's because being around you feels like work. Maybe you take too much and give nothing back. Maybe you talk at people instead of with them. Maybe you're so wrapped up in your own head that you're barely there at all. Maybe your energy is heavy, bitter, desperate, or entitled. Maybe you're performing a version of yourself that no one believes, not even you. Whatever it is, people feel it. They don't need to name it. They just know. And so they step back, quietly, politely, but firmly. And that's where most men stop. They notice the distance, feel the sting, and then bury it. They tell themselves it's other people's fault, that people are fake, shallow, disloyal, that no one appreciates realness anymore, that modern culture has ruined human connection. And maybe there's some truth in that, but it's also a convenient excuse, because if the problem is everyone else, then you never have to look in the mirror. You never have to ask the hard question, what if it's me? That question is brutal. It cuts. It forces you to consider that the common denominator in all your failed friendships, surface-level relationships, and lonely nights is you. Not the world. Not bad luck. You. But here's the other side of that coin. If you're the problem, you're also the solution. You can't control how other people act, but you can control how you show up. You can control your energy, your habits, your presence. You can become the kind of man people want to be around, not because you're performing, but because you're real. This chapter isn't about blame, it's about recognition. You have to see the pattern before you can break it, and the pattern is this. When people avoid you, they're not rejecting who you are at your core. They're rejecting who you've become in practice. The mask, the armor, the bitterness, the neediness, the ego, the emptiness dressed up as confidence. Strip that away, and you'll find something else underneath, something quieter, something stronger, something that doesn't need to be liked, but naturally draws respect. That's what this book is about. Not becoming more likable, not learning tricks to manipulate people into sticking around, but becoming the kind of man whose presence is felt, in a good way, The kind of man who doesn't chase connection but creates the conditions for it. The kind of man people gravitate toward because being near him feels like clarity, not chaos. The work starts with facing the weight of being unwanted, not running from it, not justifying it, just sitting with it, letting it hurt, and then asking, what now? Because once you stop defending yourself and start observing yourself, everything shifts. You begin to see the subtle ways you push people away, the ways you shut down, the ways you dominate or disappear, the ways your words say one thing and your energy says another. You see how you've been living in reaction to pain, to rejection, to fear, and how that reaction has become your identity. You've been so focused on not getting hurt again that you've made yourself impossible to get close to. You've built walls so high that even you can't see over them anymore. And maybe that felt necessary once. Maybe you needed those walls to survive. But survival isn't the same as living. And if you want real connection, the kind that doesn't drain you, the kind that doesn't require you to perform, you have to be willing to tear those walls down, brick by brick, quietly, carefully, but completely. This is the beginning of that work, not with action yet, just with truth. The truth that you've been avoided because you've been avoidable. The truth that change is possible. The truth that becoming better doesn't mean becoming louder, softer, funnier, or more agreeable. It means becoming more real. And real men don't wonder why they're alone. They look at what they're doing, what they're projecting, what they're holding on to, and they let go of what doesn't serve them, not because they're trying to win people over, but because they refuse to live a life where their presence is a burden. You've carried the weight of being unwanted long enough. Now it's time to put it down and rebuild from the ground up, not for others, for yourself, because a man who knows his worth doesn't beg for attention, he commands respect without asking for it, and people don't avoid him, they lean in. This is where it starts, in the quiet, honest reckoning of who you've been and who you're ready to become. No theatrics, no motivational hype, just truth, and the willingness to act on it. Cut the excuses, cut the blame, cut the performance. What's left is the work, and the work is yours. Energy is invisible, but it's the loudest thing about you. You walk into a room and people feel something before you say a word. It's not your clothes, not your posture, not even your face. It's the frequency you're vibrating on, the unspoken signal your body, mind, and spirit are broadcasting into the space around you. And most men are completely unaware of it. They think communication is just words, that if they say the right things, smile at the right times, and don't actively offend anyone, they'll be fine. But that's not how humans work. We're animals first. Social creatures wired to detect threat and safety in milliseconds. We feel each other before we hear each other. And if your energy is off, no amount of charm or wit will fix it. So ask yourself, what do people feel when they're near you? Do they feel heavier or lighter? Do they relax or tense up? Do they lean in or lean back? Do they feel like they can breathe, or do they feel like they're being drained? Most men who are avoided don't realize they're energetic vampires, not because they're evil or malicious, but because they're unconscious. They walk through life carrying resentment, insecurity, desperation, and unprocessed pain, and they leak it everywhere. Into every conversation, every glance, every silence. You've met men like this. The guy who complains constantly but never changes anything. The guy who dominates every conversation, not because he's confident, but because he can't stand silence. The guy who fishes for validation in every interaction, whose neediness is so thick you can taste it. The guy whose anger simmers just below the surface, whose energy feels like a clenched fist even when he's trying to be friendly. These men repel people, not because they're bad men, but because their energy is suffocating. Being around them feels like work, and people, consciously or not, avoid work. They mote toward ease, toward peace, toward men whose presence doesn't drain them. If you want to stop being avoided, you have to clean up your energy, not by faking positivity, not by pretending everything's fine, but by doing the internal work that shifts the frequency you operate on. Start with awareness. Pay attention to how you feel throughout the day. Notice when your chest tightens, when your jaw clenches, when your thoughts spiral into bitterness or anxiety. Notice when you're genuinely present versus when you're performing. Notice when you're listening versus when you're just waiting for your turn to speak. Your energy is a reflection of your internal state. If you're at war with yourself, people will feel that war when they're near you. If you're stuck in victimhood, they'll feel your helplessness. If you're desperate for validation, they'll sense your need and instinctively pull away, because no one wants to be responsible for filling a void that isn't theirs to fill. Now notice the energy you bring into social situations. Are you showing up as a taker or a giver? Are you trying to extract something from people? Attention, approval, entertainment? Or are you offering something real? Calm, clarity, presence, strength. The difference is massive. A man who takes makes every interaction transactional. He's constantly calculating, what can I get from this person? Are they impressed? Do they like me? Am I winning? That energy is exhausting. It puts people on guard. They feel like they're being used, even if they can't articulate why. A man who gives, not in a desperate people-pleasing way but in a grounded, centered way, makes people feel safe. He's not performing, he's not taking, he's just there, solid, present, real, and that's magnetic. But giving from a grounded place requires that you're not empty. You can't pour from a dry well, and most men are running on fumes, overworked, underrested, emotionally shut down, spiritually disconnected. They have nothing left to offer because they've been ignoring their own needs for years, and then they wonder why people avoid them. You can't show up as a man of substance if you're not cultivating substance. That means taking care of your body, your mind, your spirit. It means sleeping enough, moving enough, eating real food, spending time in silence, processing your emotions instead of burying them, doing work that matters to you, building something, creating something, contributing something. It also means cutting out the things that poison your energy. Toxic people, mindless distractions, endless scrolling, complaining without action, resentment you refuse to let go of, bad habits you've been clinging to because they're familiar. Your energy is your responsibility. No one else can fix it for you, and if you keep showing up depleted, bitter, desperate, or heavy, people will keep stepping back. Not because they're cruel, but because they're protecting their own peace. Here's the shift. Stop trying to be liked. Start trying to be solid. Stop performing. Start being present. Stop taking. Start offering calm, clarity, and realness. When you walk into a room, people should feel like the temperature dropped a few degrees. Not because you're cold, but because you're cool, steady, unhurried. Not trying to prove anything, not fishing for anything, just there, grounded in who you are. That energy is rare. Most men are either trying too hard or checked out completely. They're either loud and desperate or silent and resentful. Neither is attractive. Neither draws people in. But a man who's done the work, who's faced his pain, processed his anger, built his discipline and learned to be present, that man radiates something different, something quiet but powerful. People feel it, and they move toward it. Not because he's trying to be charismatic, but because he's real. And illness in a world full of performance is the most magnetic thing there is. So stop wondering why people avoid you. Start asking what energy you've been carrying. Start noticing how you make people feel. Start cleaning up the frequency you're broadcasting. Cut the bitterness. Cut the desperation. Cut the performance. Rebuild your internal state from the ground up. Not for applause, not for approval, but because you refuse to walk through life radiating chaos when you're capable of radiating calm. Your energy is your signature. Make it one people want to be around. There's a type of man who fills every silence with sound. Not because he has something worth saying, but because he can't stand the quiet. He talks over people, dominates conversations, turns every topic back to himself, and then wonders why no one calls him anymore. If you're being avoided, this might be you, and it's time to face it. Talking too much isn't just annoying, it's a signal. It tells people you're uncomfortable with yourself, that you need constant validation, that you don't trust the moment to hold itself without your voice filling it. And that energy, that neediness disguised as confidence, pushes people away. Real strength is comfortable in silence. It doesn't need to prove itself with words. It doesn't need to be the loudest voice in the room. It just is. And when it speaks, people listen. Not because it demands attention, but because it's earned it by knowing when to shut up. Most men talk too much for one of three reasons: insecurity, ego, or lack of awareness. Let's break them down. Insecurity. If you're insecure, you use words as armor. You talk to fill space so no one looks too closely at you. You joke constantly so no one sees your pain. You tell stories so people think you're interesting. You interrupt because you're terrified of being forgotten. Every word is a defense mechanism, and people feel it. They sense that your talking isn't communication, it's deflection, and it exhausts them. Ego. If your ego is running the show, you talk because you think your thoughts are the most important in the room. You don't listen. You wait. You don't have conversations. You perform monologues. You turn everything into a competition. And when someone else is talking, you're already planning your response, your story, your rebuttal. People stop engaging with you because engaging with your ego is pointless. They're not being heard. They're being used as an audience. Lack of awareness. Some men just don't know they do it. They've never been told. They've never paid attention. They ramble because no one's ever held up a mirror and said, "You talk too much," and it's pushing people away. So they keep going, oblivious to the glazed eyes and polite nods. They think they're being social, but they're just being exhausting. So which one are you? Be honest, because the first step to fixing this is admitting it's happening. Here's the truth. People don't avoid you because you're boring. They avoid you because you don't let them in. You're so busy talking at them that you never create space for them to talk with you. You're so focused on being heard that you never listen. And listening, real listening, is what builds connection. When someone speaks and you're truly present, they feel it. They feel seen, valued, respected, and that feeling is rare. Most people go through life never being fully heard, so when they encounter someone who actually listens, who doesn't interrupt, doesn't hijack, doesn't make it about themselves, they remember it, they want more of it, they move toward it. But if you're the guy who can't shut up, they move away, quickly. So how do you fix it? First, practice silence, not awkward, tense silence, just quiet. Let the moment breathe. Let other people speak. Let yourself sit with your thoughts without immediately verbalizing them. Get comfortable not being the center of attention. Realize that your value doesn't come from how much you talk, but from the quality of your presence. Second, listen more than you speak. This isn't about being passive or timid. It's about being strategic. When you listen, you learn. You understand. You connect. When you talk, you're just broadcasting, so flip the ratio, ask questions, let people expand, show genuine curiosity, and when they're done, resist the urge to one-up them with your own story. Just acknowledge what they said, let it land. Third, make your words count. When you do speak, say something worth hearing, but to add value, whether that's insight, humor, truth, or just a well-timed observation. Quality over quantity, always. Fourth, notice when you're talking from ego. If you're about to tell a story to make yourself look good, stop. If you're about to interrupt because you have a better point, don't. If you're about to dominate the conversation because you're uncomfortable with someone else having the floor, pause, breathe, let it go. Fifth, embrace the pause. After someone speaks, don't rush to respond. Wait a beat. Let their words settle. This does two things. It shows respect, and it gives you time to respond thoughtfully instead of reactively. People feel the difference. and they appreciate it. Here's what most men don't realize. Talking less makes you more interesting, not less. Mystery is magnetic. When you're not constantly broadcasting every thought and opinion, people wonder what you're thinking. They lean in, they ask, they engage. But when you're an open book that never stops narrating itself, there's nothing left to discover. Silence is power, not the bitter, resentful kind, the calm, confident kind, the kind that says, I don't need to fill every moment with noise because I'm comfortable in my own skin. That's the energy that draws people in, not the guy who can't stop talking, not the guy who needs constant validation through sound, but the guy who speaks when it matters and shuts up when it doesn't. So if people are avoiding you, ask yourself, am I giving them space to exist, or am I suffocating them with my need to be heard? If it's the latter, it's time to change, not by becoming silent and withdrawn, but by learning the art of balance. Talk when you have something real to say, listen when someone else does, and be comfortable in the space between. Cut the rambling, cut the monologues, cut the ego-driven need to dominate every conversation. What's left? It is presence. And presence, real, grounded, listening presence, is what people crave. You don't need to talk your way into connection. You just need to show up, be real, and make space for others to do the same. Silence is strength. Learn it, live it, and watch how people stop avoiding you and start leaning in. Desperation has a smell. It's not literal, but it's just as obvious. People can sense it the moment you walk into a room. It's in your body language, your tone, the way your eyes scan for validation, the way you laugh a little too hard at jokes that aren't funny, the way you agree with everything, challenge nothing, and mold yourself into whatever shape you think will be accepted. Desperate men get avoided. Not because they're bad people, but because their need is suffocating. Being around them feels like drowning. Every interaction is a transaction. Every conversation is an audition. And people can feel the invisible hands reaching for their approval, their attention, their reassurance. If you've been wondering why people pull away from you, this might be the reason. You're not being rejected because of who you are. You're being rejected because of what you're asking for without asking. Let's be clear. Wanting connection isn't the problem. Humans are wired for it. But there's a difference between wanting connection and needing it. Want is healthy. It's open. It says, I'd enjoy your company, but I'm fine without it. Need is toxic. It's desperate. It says, I require your approval to feel okay about myself. And that's the energy that repels people. Because when someone needs you, you're no longer a person to them. You're a source, a fix, a way to fill the void they refuse to face on their own. And no one wants that responsibility. So the first step is brutal honesty. Are you desperate? Do you need people to like you? Do you check your phone obsessively, hoping someone reached out? Do you overanalyze every interaction, replaying conversations in your head, trying to figure out if you said the wrong thing? Do you bend and twist yourself into shapes that aren't you, just to avoid rejection? If yes, you're operating from scarcity. You believe connection is rare, so you cling to it. You believe approval is hard to get, so you beg for it. You believe you're not enough on your own, so you try to extract worth from other people, and people feel that. They feel your lack, your hunger, your emptiness, and they step back, not because they're cruel, but because they're protecting themselves from being consumed. Here's the shift. You have to become whole on your own first. Not perfect, not complete, but solid, grounded, content in your own presence. And when you reach that place, where you genuinely enjoy your own company, where solitude is peace instead of punishment, that's when people start coming toward you. Because the man who needs nothing is magnetic, not because he's cold or indifferent, but because his energy is clean. He's not taking, he's not extracting, he's just there, present, open, but not needy. And that's rare. That's powerful. So how do you kill the desperation? First, stop seeking validation externally. Every time you post something online and refresh to see who liked it, you're feeding the beast. Every time you change your opinion based on who's in the room, you're feeding it. Every time you agree with someone just to be agreeable, you're feeding it. Cut that off. Build your sense of self from the inside out, not the outside in. Second, get comfortable alone. Spend time with yourself, real time, not distracted by screens or noise, but actually present with your own thoughts. Go for walks, sit in silence, journal, lift, build something. Do things that remind you that you're enough without anyone else's input. Solitude isn't loneliness, it's reclamation. Third, stop over-investing in people who barely invest in you. Desperate men chase. They text first. Always. They initiate plans. Always. They give energy, time, attention, and get breadcrumbs in return. And they keep doing it because they're afraid if they stop, they'll be alone. Here's the truth. You're already alone. You're just performing connection with people who don't care. Stop. Let relationships be mutual, or let them end. Fourth, develop standards. Desperate men accept anything. They tolerate disrespect, flakiness, half-hearted effort, anything to avoid the void. But men with standards don't. They walk away from people who don't match their energy, not arrogantly, just calmly, because they know their time is valuable, and they refuse to spend it begging for scraps. Fifth, focus on mission, not validation. The easiest way to kill desperation is to have something bigger than social approval to care about. Work, purpose, a craft, a goal. When your energy is directed toward building something real, you stop needing people to affirm you. You're too busy creating, and ironically, that's when people start paying attention. Because a man on a mission is compelling. A man begging for attention is not. Let's talk about what happens when you stop being desperate. You stop performing. You stop people-pleasing. You stop scanning the room for approval. You stop molding yourself to fit, and you start showing up as you actually are. Flawed, real, unpolished. And some people will leave. Good, let them. Because the people who stay, the ones who appreciate the real you, those are the people worth knowing, not the ones you had to beg to stay. Desperation comes from a belief that you're not enough, and until you kill that belief, you'll keep leaking it into every interaction. You'll keep pushing people away while trying to pull them close. You'll keep wondering why connection feels so hard when the answer is staring you in the face. You're trying too hard. Stop trying. Start being. Be the man who's so grounded in his own worth that he doesn't need anyone's approval. Be the man who shows up, offers value, and walks away if it's not reciprocated. Be the man who enjoys people but doesn't need them. That energy, that calm, centered, non-needy presence is what draws people in. Not because you're chasing him, but because you're not. And in a world full of desperate, needy, validation-seeking people, that makes you rare. And rare gets noticed. Rare gets respected. Rare gets connection. Real connection, not the shallow, transactional kind you've been settling for. Cut the desperation. Build yourself. Need nothing. And watch how everything changes. Resentment is quiet poison. It doesn't announce itself. You don't walk into a room and declare, "I'm bitter and angry and I've been wronged." But you don't have to. It's written all over you. In the way you speak, the way you hold your jaw, the way your eyes don't quite meet anyone else's. The way every conversation somehow circles back to what's unfair, what's broken, what's wrong. People avoid bitter men, not because bitterness isn't understandable. Life is hard, and sometimes you get a bad hand, but because carrying that bitterness everywhere, letting it color every interaction, every opinion, every moment, that's a choice, and it's exhausting to be around. If you're holding on to resentment, you're carrying a weight that's crushing you and repelling everyone else, and until you put it down, nothing improves. Let's be honest, you have reasons to be angry. Maybe someone betrayed you. Maybe life didn't go the way you planned. Maybe you worked hard and got nothing in return. Maybe people took from you and never gave back. Maybe you've been overlooked, underestimated, disrespected. Fine, you're allowed to feel that. But here's the line. Are you processing it, or are you nursing it? Are you working through it, or are you building an identity around it? Because there's a difference between feeling pain and becoming it. Resentment is what happens when you refuse to let go. When you hold on to the past like it's a weapon. When you keep score. When you replay every slight, every injustice, every disappointment on a loop until it becomes the soundtrack of your life. And here's the brutal part. No one cares, not because they're heartless, but because everyone has their own pain. Everyone's been wronged. Everyone's carrying something. And if your response to that pain is to make it everyone else's problem, people will distance themselves fast. Bitter men don't just talk about their pain. They radiate it. It seeps into everything. Their humor is cynical. Their worldview is dark. Their default response to anything good is suspicion or dismissal. They can't celebrate anyone else's success because it reminds them of their own failures. They can't enjoy the moment because they're too busy resenting the past. And people feel it. They feel the heaviness, the negativity, the lack of hope, and they move away. Because life is hard enough without voluntarily spending time around someone who makes it feel harder. So ask yourself, have you become a bitter man? Do you complain more than you create? Do you criticize more than you contribute? Do you focus on what's wrong instead of what you can control? Do you hold grudges? Do you keep a mental list of everyone who's wronged you? Do you see the world as a place that owes you something? If yes, that's the problem. Not the world, not other people. You. Here's what resentment does. It keeps you stuck. It gives you an excuse to not move forward, because as long as you're blaming someone else for your situation, you don't have to take responsibility for changing it. You get to be the victim, and victimhood, for all its pain, is comfortable, it's familiar, it lets you off the hook, but it also keeps you alone, because no one wants to be around a man who refuses to take his life into his own hands. The shift starts with a decision. Are you going to keep nursing this, or are you going to let it go? And letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean pretending it didn't hurt. It doesn't mean excusing what happened. It means releasing the grip, refusing to let the past dictate your present, choosing to move forward instead of staying chained to what's already gone. Here's how you start. Acknowledge the resentment. Stop pretending you're fine when you're not. Stop burying it. Name it. Write it down. Say it out loud to yourself. I'm angry that this happened. I'm hurt that they did that. Don't judge it. Just acknowledge it, because you can't release what you won't admit is there. Stop rehearsing it. Every time you replay the story in your head, you're reinforcing the wound. You're keeping it fresh. You're choosing to relive it. Stop. When the thoughts come, notice them, and then let them pass. Don't engage. Don't spiral. Just observe and release. Shift the narrative. Resentment thrives on the story that you're powerless, that life happened to you, that you're a victim of circumstances beyond your control. Maybe that was true once, but it's not true now. Right now, you have a choice. You can stay bitter, or you can use what happened as fuel. You can let it define you, or you can let it refine you. Change the story from I got screwed to I survived, and now I'm building something better. Forgive. Not for them, for you. Forgiveness isn't about excusing what happened. It's about freeing yourself from carrying it. You don't have to reconcile with anyone. You don't have to forget. You just have to decide that holding on to the anger is costing you more than the original offense. And then you let it go. Not because they deserve it, because you do. Focus forward. Resentment keeps you looking backward. Healing requires you to look forward. What are you building? What are you working toward? What's worth your energy now? Pour yourself into that. Let the past fade because you're too busy creating a future worth living. Here's what happens when you let go of resentment. You become lighter. People feel the difference. You stop being the guy who drags every conversation into the negative. You stop being the guy who can't be happy for others. You stop being the guy whose energy feels like a weight. And when you stop being that guy, people stop avoiding you. They stop walking on eggshells. They stop bracing themselves for the bitterness. They relax. They open up. They actually want to be around you. But this work is internal. No one can do it for you. And if you keep holding on to the past, waiting for an apology that's never coming, waiting for justice that won't arrive, waiting for the world to make it right, you'll stay stuck and alone. Cut the resentment, not because it's noble, but because it's killing you. It's keeping you small. It's pushing people away, and it's robbing you of the peace you claim to want. You've been wronged. Fine. Now what? Are you going to spend the rest of your life making that your identity? Or are you going to put it down, walk forward, and build something worth living for? The choice is yours. But understand this. As long as you're bitter, you'll be avoided. Because bitterness is contagious, and no one wants to catch it. Let it go, not all at once, but piece by piece, day by day, and watch how the weight lifts, how your energy shifts, how people stop pulling away and start leaning in. You're not a victim, you're a man with a past, and the past is only as powerful as you let it be. Cut it loose and start fresh. There's a version of masculinity that says, real men don't feel, don't cry, don't hurt, don't need. They bury everything, soldier through, and never let anyone see the cracks. And for a long time you probably believed that. Maybe you still do. But here's the truth, that version of masculinity doesn't tell you. The armor you've built to protect yourself is the same thing that's keeping you alone. People don't avoid you because you're weak. They avoid you because you won't let them in. You've built walls so high that even when someone tries to connect, they hit concrete, and eventually they stop trying. You think strength is silence, endurance, never breaking, and sure, there's a kind of strength in that, but there's a deeper strength, a harder strength, in being vulnerable, in being honest about what you feel, in letting people see you, not just the version of you that you think is acceptable. Most men confuse vulnerability with weakness. They think if they admit they're struggling, they'll be seen as less. If they show emotion, they'll be judged. If they ask for help, they'll be dismissed. And maybe that's happened. Maybe you opened up once and got burned. Maybe you showed someone your pain and they used it against you. Or worse, they didn't care, so you shut down. You decided it wasn't worth it. You decided it was safer to stay behind the walls. But safety and connection can't coexist. Not real connection. You can't have deep, meaningful relationships with people who've never seen the real you. And if all you ever show is the armor, all you'll ever have is surface-level interactions. Polite, distant, hollow. Is that what you want? To be surrounded by people who know your name but not your story? Who see your face but not your heart? To go through life never being truly known because you're too afraid to be truly seen? Here's what vulnerability actually is. It's the courage to be honest, to admit when you're not okay, to let people see your flaws, your fears, your struggles, not because you're looking for pity or attention, but because you're done pretending. You're done performing strength you don't feel. You're done carrying everything alone because you think that's what men do. Vulnerability is strength because it's a choice. It's not weakness spilling out because you couldn't hold it in. It's you consciously deciding to lower the walls, to let someone in, to risk being hurt because the alternative, staying hidden, is worse. And here's the thing, people respect that. They respect honesty. They respect a man who's strong enough to admit he's not always strong, because they know it's harder to be real than it is to pretend. But let's be clear, vulnerability is not vomiting your emotions on everyone. It's not complaining. It's not using people as therapists. It's not dumping your pain on anyone who'll listen and then wondering why they distance themselves. There's a difference between vulnerability and emotional incontinence. Vulnerability is intentional, selective. It's sharing with people who've earned your trust. It's being honest in moments where honesty deepens connection. It's saying, I'm struggling with this, not because you need them to fix it, but because you're letting them in. Emotional incontinence is chaotic. It's unloading on anyone, anytime, without discernment. It's making your emotions everyone else's responsibility. And that's not strength, that's just another form of neediness. So how do you practice real vulnerability? First, know who you're letting in. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Vulnerability is powerful, but it's also risky. So be selective. Share with people who've shown up, who've proven they're safe, who've earned your trust through their actions, not just their words. Second, start small. You don't have to unload everything at once. Vulnerability is a muscle. You build it over time. Start with small truths. I've been feeling off lately. That actually bothered me. I'm not sure how to handle this. See how people respond. If they respect it, go deeper. If they don't, pull back. Third, own your emotions without drowning in them. Vulnerability isn't wallowing. It's acknowledging what's real without letting it consume you. You can say, I'm going through a tough time, without making it your entire identity. You can share pain without centering every conversation around it. Fourth, balance vulnerability with strength. People respect a man who can be honest about his struggles and is actively working to overcome them. I'm dealing with this, and here's what I'm doing about it. That's powerful. It shows you're not a victim. You're a man facing his reality and handling it. Fifth, don't weaponize it. Don't use vulnerability as a manipulation tactic. Don't share your pain just to get sympathy or control. Don't guilt people into staying or caring. Real vulnerability is offered freely, with no strings attached. If people respond, great. If they don't, you move on. Here's what happens when you start being vulnerable in healthy ways. The right people move closer. The people who can't handle realness step back, and that's fine. Let them go. They weren't your people anyway. But the ones who stay, they see you, actually see you, and that creates a bond that surface-level interactions never could, because now they know you're real. You're not performing, you're not hiding, you're just you, flawed, struggling, but honest. And that's what people are starving for, not perfection, not a highlight reel, just realness. A man who's strong enough to admit he's human. The armor you've been wearing your whole life. It's heavy, it's exhausting, and it's keeping you alone. Not because people don't want to know you, but because you won't let them. So here's the question. So, are you ready to put it down? Not all of it, not recklessly, but enough. Enough to let someone in, enough to be seen, enough to risk connection. Because if you keep hiding, you'll keep being avoided. Not maliciously, just inevitably. People can't connect with walls. They need to see the man behind them. Cut the performance, lower the armor, be honest, be real, be vulnerable, not weak, but strong enough to be human. And watch how the right people stop avoiding you and start moving toward you. Because what you've been hiding is the very thing they've been looking for. This is where it all comes together. Everything up until now has been about identifying what pushes people away. Now it's time to talk about what draws them in. You don't become magnetic by trying to be magnetic. You become magnetic by becoming solid, grounded, real, whole. And when you reach that place, where you're not performing, not chasing, not desperate, people naturally move toward you. Not because you're perfect, but because you're present. Not because you're loud, but because you're calm. Not because you need them, but because your presence offers something rare. Clarity, peace, and strength. Let's talk about what this man looks like, not as an ideal to worship, but as a direction to move toward. He's comfortable in his own skin. He's not trying to be anyone else. He's done comparing himself to other men. He knows his strengths and owns his weaknesses. He doesn't apologize for who he is, but he's also not defensive about it. He just is. This comfort radiates. People feel it, and it puts them at ease, because when you're not at war with yourself, people don't have to tiptoe around you. They can relax, they can be themselves, and that's magnetic. He's present. When he's with you, he's actually with you, not half listening while scrolling, not already thinking about the next thing. He's there, and you feel it. People are so starved for real attention that when they encounter someone who actually gives it, they remember. Presence isn't a technique, it's a practice. It's choosing to put your phone down, to make eye contact, to listen without planning your response, to be fully engaged in the moment instead of drifting through it. He doesn't need validation. He's done seeking approval. He knows who he is, and he doesn't need anyone's permission to be that. This doesn't mean he's arrogant or closed off. It just means his sense of self isn't dependent on what others think. And that independence is powerful, because people can feel when they're being used for validation, and they pull away. But when someone doesn't need anything from them, they lean in. He gives without keeping score. He helps because he can, not because he's expecting something back. He shows up for people without making it transactional. He offers his time, his presence, his insight, freely. And that generosity creates a natural pull. People want to reciprocate, not because they owe him, but because they genuinely want to. But here's the key. He only gives to people who appreciate it. He's not a doormat. He's not people-pleasing. He's selective. He invests in people who invest back, and when they don't, he walks away without resentment. He has standards. He doesn't tolerate disrespect. He doesn't accept half-hearted effort. He doesn't stay in relationships, romantic or otherwise, that drain him. He knows what he will and won't accept, and he enforces those boundaries calmly, not aggressively, not defensively, just firmly. Standards aren't about being difficult. They're about respecting yourself enough to walk away from what doesn't serve you. And that self-respect is attractive, because it signals that you value yourself, which makes others value you too. He's consistent. He doesn't have good days and terrible days where his mood swings wildly. He's steady, reliable. People know what they're getting from him, and that consistency builds trust. It makes people feel safe, and when people feel safe, they open up. He doesn't gossip or tear others down. He's not interested in drama. He doesn't talk about people behind their backs. He doesn't build himself up by putting others down. He's secure enough that he doesn't need to diminish anyone else to feel good about himself. And people notice. They notice that he's trustworthy, that he's solid, that he doesn't play games, and they gravitate toward that. He has a mission. He's not just floating through life. He's building something, working towards something, creating something. It doesn't have to be grand or public, but it has to matter to him, and that sense of purpose is magnetic. Because a man with direction is compelling. He's not looking for someone to complete him or give him meaning. He's already got it, and people want to be part of that energy. He's honest, even when it's uncomfortable. He tells the truth, not brutally or tactlessly, but directly. He doesn't sugarcoat to be liked. He doesn't lie to avoid conflict. He says what needs to be said with respect and clarity, and people trust him for it, because they know they'll always get the real answer, not the polite one. He laughs. He doesn't take himself too seriously. He can joke. He can be light. He doesn't carry the weight of the world on his shoulders every second. He knows when to be serious and when to let go. And that balance, that ability to be both grounded and playful, makes him human, approachable, real. He's self-aware. He knows his triggers. He knows when he's reacting instead of responding. He knows when his ego is running the show, and when he catches himself, he corrects. He apologizes when he's wrong, and he adjusts when he's off. He's not perfect, but he's aware, and that awareness keeps him growing. Now here's the truth. Becoming this man isn't about checking boxes. It's not a formula. It's a process, a lifelong practice of stripping away what's false and leaning into what's real. You won't get there by reading this once and nodding. You'll get there by doing the work, daily, consistently, in the small moments when no one's watching. You'll get there by noticing when you're performing and choosing to be real instead. By noticing when you're desperate and choosing to be whole instead. By noticing when you're bitter and choosing to let go instead. By noticing when you're talking too much and choosing to listen instead. Every choice, every action, every moment of self-awareness moves you closer, not to perfection, but to authenticity, and authenticity is what people gravitate toward. You don't need to be the smartest, the funniest, the richest, or the best-looking man in the room. You just need to be the most real, the most present, the most grounded, and that's something anyone can become if they're willing to do the work. So stop wondering why people avoid you. Start becoming the man they don't want to avoid. Cut the performance. Cut the desperation. Cut the armor. Cut the bitterness. Cut the excuses. Build yourself, slowly, quietly, intentionally, not for applause, not for validation, but because you refuse to walk through life as anything less than who you're capable of becoming. And when you reach that place, where you're whole, grounded, and real, people will feel it. They won't be able to name it, but they'll be drawn to it. Because you're not chasing connection anymore. You're creating the conditions for it. And that's when everything changes. One of the hardest lessons a man has to learn is this. Not everyone is worth your time. Not everyone deserves your energy. And staying connected to the wrong people is one of the fastest ways to destroy yourself. You've been taught that loyalty is everything, that you stick with people no matter what, that walking away is weakness, betrayal, or selfishness. And because of that, you've stayed in relationships, friendships, family dynamics, work environments that have slowly drained the life out of you. You've tolerated disrespect because you didn't want to cause conflict. You've accepted breadcrumbs because you were afraid of being alone. You've made excuses for people who never showed up for you because cutting them off felt too final, too harsh. But here's what no one tells you. Staying connected to toxic people is worse than being alone, because they don't just waste your time, they poison your energy, they lower your standards, they normalize dysfunction, and slowly, without you realizing it, they turn you into a version of yourself you don't recognize. If you've been wondering why you feel heavy, drained, or stuck, look at the people around you. Are they lifting you up or pulling you down? Are they adding to your life or subtracting from it? Are they celebrating your growth or resenting it? And be honest, because most men lie to themselves about this. They defend people who don't defend them. They stay loyal to people who aren't loyal back. They give chance after chance to people who've proven, repeatedly, that they don't care. Why? Because walking away feels like failure, like admitting you were wrong about them, like accepting that the time and energy you invested was wasted. So you stay. You keep hoping they'll change. You keep believing that if you just give a little more, it'll turn around. It won't. And deep down, you know that. Here's the shift. Walking away isn't failure, it's self-respect. It's recognizing that your time, your energy, and your peace are finite, and you get to decide who has access to them. Not everyone who was important to you once is meant to stay in your life forever. People change, circumstances change, and sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is let go. But most men struggle with this because they haven't defined what they will and won't tolerate. They don't have standards. They accept whatever comes because they're afraid of being alone, or they don't believe they deserve better. So, let's get clear. Here are the people you need to walk away from. People who disrespect you. If someone consistently disrespects you, talks down to you, dismisses your boundaries, treats you like you're disposable, walk away. It doesn't matter how long you've known them. It doesn't matter what history you share. Respect is non-negotiable, and if they can't give it, they don't belong in your life. People who drain you. Some people are emotional vampires. Every interaction leaves you exhausted. They take and never give. They need constant attention, constant reassurance, constant support. But when you need them, they're nowhere to be found. Walk away. You're not their therapist, you're not their parent, and you're not responsible for carrying them. People who resent your growth. When you start changing, getting disciplined, setting goals, building yourself, some people will resist it. They'll mock you, sabotage you, try to pull you back into old patterns because your growth threatens their comfort. Walk away. Your growth is more important than their approval. People who are perpetually negative. If someone only shows up to complain, criticize, or drag everything down into negativity, walk away. You can't save them. And the longer you stay, the more their toxicity seeps into you. People who don't reciprocate. If you're always the one reaching out, always the one making plans, always the one putting in effort, and they never match it, walk away. Relationships should be mutual. If you're the only one trying, you're not in a relationship. You're in a one-sided performance. Walking away doesn't have to be dramatic. You don't need to have a big confrontation or explain yourself. You just stop. Stop reaching out. Stop making excuses for them. Stop giving energy to people who don't value it. Let the relationship fade. And if they notice and ask what happened, be honest, calm, direct. I realized this wasn't serving me anymore. That's it. No attack, no blame, just truth. Some people will be hurt. Let them. You're not responsible for managing their emotions. You're responsible for protecting your peace. And yes, it'll feel uncomfortable, especially at first, because walking away means facing the void. It means acknowledging that you're alone, at least temporarily, and that's scary. But being alone is better than being surrounded by people who make you feel alone. It's better than spending your energy on relationships that give nothing back. It's better than lowering your standards just to avoid discomfort. Here's what happens when you start walking away from the wrong people. Space opens up. Space for better people. Space for better energy. Space for you to grow without being dragged down. And the right people, the ones who actually value you, they stay. They show up. They reciprocate. And those relationships deepen, because now you're not spreading yourself thin trying to maintain connections that were never real to begin with. You become more selective, more intentional. You stop tolerating what you used to accept. And that shift, that simple act of saying, I deserve better, changes everything. Because when you know your worth, you stop settling. You stop begging for attention from people who don't see your value. You stop trying to force relationships that aren't meant to be, and you start building a circle of people who actually add to your life. Quality over quantity, every time. It doesn't matter if you have 3 real friends or 30 surface-level ones. The 3 who show up, who respect you, who reciprocate, they're worth more than all the rest combined. So take inventory. Look at the people you're giving your time and energy to. Ask yourself, are they making my life better or worse? Am I growing or shrinking around them? Do they add value or just take up space? And then make the hard calls. Walk away from the ones who don't serve you, not with anger, not with resentment, just calmly, quietly, firmly. Guard your peace, protect your energy, build a life surrounded by people who respect you, who lift you up, who match your effort. And let everyone else fade into the background, because your life is too short and too valuable to spend it on people who don't appreciate it. Cut the dead weight, choose yourself, and walk forward toward the relationships that actually matter. You made it. 9 chapters, thousands of words. And if you're still here, it means something in these pages hit you. Something resonated, something made you uncomfortable enough to keep reading. Good. That discomfort is the beginning. This isn't a book you read once and forget. It's a mirror, a challenge, a call to become better, not for anyone else, but for yourself.